I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting, November 7th, 2024, 501 Main Street. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call?
Crenshaw,
Here.
Walker,
Here.
Garcia,
Here.
Cackley,
Here.
Dade, Andrews,
Here.
Tillman,
Here.
Bryant, Greenwald,
Here.
all present.
So tonight we have, one of the things that's the mayor's privilege to do is to swear in a few people. So we will start with Emmanuel, down to the podium. Okay, this is you want to turn around? This is Emmanuel Bellegarde. He is our new city administrator.
Good evening, everyone.
And we are excited and glad the search is over. We went through a long process and we are very thankful that he's here. And let's get him sworn in so he can take over. How's that sound?
Excellent.
Okay, if you will raise your right hand. I, Emmanuel Bellegarde,
I, Emmanuel Bellegarde,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Iowa,
and of the state of Iowa,
and that I will honestly demean myself in office
and that I will honestly demean myself in office
and faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of city administrator
and faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the city administrator
of the city of Keokuk
of the city of Keokuk
to the best of my knowledge
to the best of my knowledge
and ability,
and ability,
and in accordance with the laws of the state of Iowa
and in accordance with the laws of the state of Iowa
and the ordinance of said city.
and the ordinance of said city.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome to Keokuk.
Thank you.
We don't get to do this very often, twice in one night, but tonight we are also going to swear in Andy Whitaker as our new Assistant Chief of Police. Hi, Andy. Okay, raise your right hand. Here we go. I, Andy Whitaker, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution
I, Andy Whitaker, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Iowa,
and of the state of Iowa,
and that I will honestly demean myself in office
and that I will honestly demean myself in office
and faithfully and impartially discharge
and faithfully and impartially discharge
the duties of Assistant Chief of Police
as the duties of Assistant Chief of Police
of the city of Keokuk
of the city of Keokuk
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
and in accordance with the laws of the state of Iowa
with in accordance with the laws of the state of Iowa
and the ordinance of said city.
and the ordinance of said city.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Wait just a minute. Okay, moving right along, mayor's correspondence. Friday, November 8th, 2024, we have Veterans Day Assembly at the Keokuk High School at 9:30 a.m. Main Street will be having their sip and shop from 5 to 8 p.m. Get your commemorative glasses at Main Street, at the Main Street Keokuk office. Item number 3, the Great River Players are performing the Sweet Delilah Swim Club at their 17th South 6th location at 7:30, and then again tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. Saturday, November 9th, there was a ribbon cutting at the historic Keokuk Union Depot. The program starts at 2:30 p.m. and the actual ribbon cutting is at 3:00 p.m. And the Little League will have a music bingo fundraiser at the Oddfellows Building at 6:00 p.m. On Monday, November 11th, Veterans Day, there'll be a veterans celebration at the Memorial Keokuk National Cemetery at 11 a.m. Please come and honor those who have served and are serving this great country. And last but not least, always remember to eat, drink, and shop local, and remember kindness matters. Item number 5, citizens' request. With citizens' request, if there's anyone that would like to come forward, we ask that you come to the podium, state your name and your address. You have 3 minutes, and you can start now if there's anybody here. There's a lot of people out there. Nobody wants to have a citizen's request. I'm kind of surprised. Okay, moving right along. Item number 6, the consent agenda. Minutes of the regular city council meeting of October 17th, 2024. Resolution approving a liquor license for Dr. Getwell's Bar and Grill, 1100 Main Street, Class C retail alcohol license effective November 24th, 2024. Resignation of Amanda Rogers from the Rand Park Pavilion Commission effective October 22nd, 2024. Appointment of Terry Bracklesberg to the Veterans Memorial Commission, fulfilling the term to expire June 1st, 2028. Sidewalk display permit for Lou and Joe Clothing and Company at 13 North 6th Street, and a motion to pay the bills and transfers listed in registers number 5437 through 5438. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda, including the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Item number 7. Now is the time and the place for the public hearing granting a permanent encroachment to the Keokuk Community School District for a block retaining wall and concrete pad to accommodate bleachers. A public hearing notice was published in the Daily Gate City on October 29th, 2029. I am opening the public hearing at 5:37 p.m. Do we have any discussion?
Mayor, if there's any questions, Superintendent Dinger is here that she can answer. The only thing the city would recommend is that there's some type of ballast or bollard on the side of the sidewalk that the cars would park, so there wouldn't be anybody coming up over and maybe hitting someone because they'll have the bleachers sitting there. They don't show that. I don't know if that's planned, but that's what we would recommend.
So the Keokuk Community School District requested a permanent encroachment to install a 10-foot by 50-foot concrete pad with block retaining walls in the city right-of-way adjacent to the public sidewalk west of the school tennis courts, 2285 Middle Road. A public hearing was required. We recommend approving. Any more discussion? Then I'll close the, City Clerk, have you had any written objections? There being no further comments and objections, I will close the public hearing at 5:39 p.m. Item number B under 7, consider resolution granting a permanent encroachment to the Keokuk Community School District for the block retaining wall and concrete pad to accommodate the bleachers. Do I have a motion to approve? Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I'm sorry. So your suggestion, Pam, will that be part of the required design?
I guess we didn't want to make it a requirement.
It sounds like a really good idea.
But I would prefer, I think that, I mean, the insurance that they will give to the city every year is supposed to, take liability off of the city. But I just think a safety reason, that something should be there at the rear of the bleacher area.
If it helps for the discussion, we did talk about that with our architect and the contractor. It probably, my guess is it wasn't included in the plans because it's not a permanent structure, but we're more than happy to accommodate that. I think that's a good idea to stop any traffic that might.
Yeah,
Pull too
bump up
close.
over the curb.
And will that span the whole 50 feet of the bleachers? Because
No,
they're 50
it
feet
doesn't.
long.
The bleachers would not be the whole, it's two smaller sections. And there's
16 feet of the protection rail?
each, there's two sections. There's
Okay.
Starting from like that first area when you come down a little past that, and then it extends, but not clear to the end of the fence. This is Aaron Hinton. He's our Director of Facilities for the school district. Any other questions?
Any more discussion? Okay. So we have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Item number 8, consider resolution approving the fiscal year 2023 to 2024 annual financial report. Do I have a motion to approve? Do we have any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Item number 9, Councilmember Garcia is going to recognize our retired and retired city employees. Can you come to the podium then? Or do you want to do it from where you're at? Okay.
Sorry, I don't want my back to you. Okay, so this has been weighing on my mind for a while. Some of the people that we're going to honor tonight have worked for the city longer than I've been alive. Sorry to age a few of you. And I think that deserves some recognition. What an accomplishment. The council and myself want to give a sincere thank you to you and hopefully start something that we can continue to do long into the future. I only went back as long as I've been here. So if you know anybody that would like to do this, please tell them and we would gladly recognize them. So tonight we gather to celebrate a remarkable group of individuals who have dedicated part or most of their lives to serving our community. As we honor our retirees, we reflect on the countless contributions they have made to our city. Each of you has played a vital role in shaping the vibrant community we enjoy today. Your hard work, commitment, and passion have not only enriched the lives of your colleagues, but have also left an incredible mark on the lives of the residents you served. As dedicated public servants, you ensured our safety and well-being and quality of life and services here in Keokuk. Your efforts have made a lasting impact. We acknowledge the late nights, the early mornings, and the unwavering dedication you brought to your roles. I know it was not all sunshine and rainbows, so we thank you for your perseverance in the hard times as well. Retirement marks a new chapter, and many of you have been there already. A time for you to pursue your passions, spend time with loved ones, and explore new adventures. What an exciting journey that lies ahead. Your wisdom and experience will continue to inspire those around you. On behalf of the entire community, we thank you for your service and your dedication. You have not just built a career, you have contributed to a legacy. I hope you are enjoying this well-deserved time of relaxation and fulfillment. Congratulations to all of you on your retirements. You will always be a cherished part of our city's history. I also want to thank the mayor for putting a lot of hard work into helping me do this. It was an idea and she definitely was the action behind it. So we couldn't have done it without her. I am going to read everyone. I know everyone's not here tonight. So if you could come up, if you are here, we have something for you. So I guess I'm going to start with City Hall. We had Jean Ludwig, who's been here for 11 years. In sanitation, we had Daniel Jefferson, who worked here for 20 years. David Johnson, also from sanitation, retired after 9 years. Wastewater treatment, Arletta Lumeta worked here for 42 years. Mark Neuendorf, 28 years. Mark Weirather, 22 years. Yeah. In the bridge department, we had Roy Bell, who retired after 17 years. In the park department, Dennis McGinnis, 21 years. In the fire department, Greg Olmeyer, 27 years. And later this month, we'll have Rick Marlin, who is retiring after 32 years with the fire department and 9 years with the police department. From our police department, Jeff Mullen was 16 years. Ivan Parrish, 33 years. Scott Kindig, 32 years. Where's Scott? Dave Hinton with 31 years. Bob Haflinger with 32 years. And lastly, we have Kevin Church with 31 years, all from the police department. So I just think it's incredible that you're talking centuries of years of service just right here in our room with us. So thank you to all of you, and I hope we can continue doing this.
We're having too many things that make you tear up. Okay, item number 10, council liaison reports. Don't have any this time. Okay, item number 11, staff reports.
I need to set up a code revision meeting. We have some recommendations from the Keokuk Veteran Commission that they would like to raise their membership to 7, anywhere from 5 to 7. And then I need to discuss, we can do it in a workshop or a finance committee on incentives for new businesses. What the city, I think we need to set up, and I don't know why we don't have that, but something that gives us a guideline of what we can actually, based on improvements, that we could actually let people know prior to saying you need to come speak with the council. So if I could get some meetings set up with you guys, that would be great. Also, we do have a lawsuit pending for the Board of Adjustment and ITC on their high power lines that they've been putting up. So that will be ongoing right now. We've reached out to ICAP. ICAP has sent an email back saying that they're checking to see if the city has this type of coverage. And they advised to go ahead and send it to our city attorney. Our city attorney actually has a conflict of interest. So I will discuss this with Emmanuel and decide whether, who we're going to send it to. We need a response by the 25th of November.
We recently experienced the passing of 2 retired Keokuk police officers, Deputy Chief Gary Raymaker and Chief Reinhold Dobson. Our department had the honor of providing pallbearing services for the families of these officers. The officers that assisted with these duties include Assistant Chief Andy Whitaker, Captain Jake Moore, Sergeant Brad Johnson, Patrolman Greg Himes, Patrolman Mason Shao, Patrolman Nathan Despain, Patrolman Nick Smith, and Detective Steve Dre. Many of these officers volunteered their time on their day off to go in and do that. They've each received a letter of recognition for doing that. I also want to recognize several members of our staff that volunteered their time to assist with our First Stop Halloween event on October 31st. Assistant Chief Andy Whitaker, Records Clerk Lacey Jones, and School Resource Officer Allison Dade all volunteered their time to ensure this community event was a success. We also received assistance from several high school students and our local Walmart as they donated a significant amount of candy We did hand out approximately $4,000 worth of candy in about 90 minutes. This event is funded by donations. Yeah. This event is funded by donations and is organized by Officer Dade and the Little Red Basket nonprofit.
Okay, item number 12, new business. Anybody? With that being said, I need a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We'll take a 5-minute rest here and we'll come back to the workshop. Make sure you shake a few hands out there before you leave.
I will. The public.
That was very nice. I got a bad cold, so I'm gonna keep my hair down.
I got it.
I don't even know what time I got up. Okay. Listen to him, he already knows. 5:55, is it 5? Oh, it is 5:55. That's all right. There's a lot of people talking, but we're gonna get busy because we need to. Okay, guys, are we ready to get started with the workshop? See how people listen to you? Steve Andrews is outside. Okay. Here we go. Are we ready, guys? Okay, so I'd like to call to order the council workshop, November 7th, 2024, immediately following the regular meeting. And the first item and only item on the workshop is Keokuk Police Department staffing strategy. And you want to come up here so we can hear you better? It's a little bit better. I don't know. I think it's like better place in the room.
All right, we're good to go. All right. So I wanted to give some framework on a meeting that I had with the Public Safety Committee on October 22nd before we get into discussion. That way everybody kind of has the information, at least the framework of the information that was provided to the Public Safety Committee and kind of the status of our staffing levels and some possible solutions. So we are, we're budgeted for 24 sworn positions at the police department. That does not include our 3 non-sworn positions. We currently have 17 officers carrying the load of 24. In the last 365 days, we've had over 12,000 calls for service. That's more than Fort Madison and nearly twice as many as the Lee County Sheriff's Office. Nearly all paid time off requires overtime to cover the shift. That means that when overtime is covering that shift, it requires an additional 50% salary expenditure. This was expected and discussed during the last budget season, as we knew we were going to have retirements, as we saw some of the guys that were acknowledged here tonight. We're 4 months into the fiscal year. We are at about 95% of our overtime budget. I have developed a plan to alleviate some of this overtime utilizing those with flexible schedules, such as myself, the assistant chief, the school resource officer, and the other detective. However, this does take away from other duties and is not a sustainable option long-term, without suffering a reduction in services within the areas of those specialty positions. We cannot afford to get 1 or 2 more officers behind. At the absolute minimum, it takes 28 weeks from the start of the academy until an individual is fully trained and counted as a body on a shift. If you add in the hiring process, you're looking closer to 36 weeks, or about 9 months. This timeline significantly reduces liability to the city as we make sure our officers are prepared prior to releasing them from this training. It's very important that we maintain that training timeline. The council has been a great partner in my short tenure in regards to our staffing situation. We've developed some progressive ideas that have resulted in multiple applicants that would not have been eligible to apply to our department prior to making those changes due to age or residency restrictions. Out of those applicants, we were able to hire 1 that would not have been eligible in the past. While these adjustments have been minimally productive, it's clear that additional steps need to be taken to recruit and retain officers. Our department has a great team. We have a lot of young officers that like working here. They want this to be their home. We have some older officers that provide a lot of experience and expertise to these younger officers that they work with. We need to do what we can to ensure that the officers we have stay, as well as making sure that we present ourselves as an attractive employment opportunity. With all of that in mind, I called a public safety meeting on October 22nd. We discussed the staffing issue in great length. I'm not sure what the time was. You'd have to ask Councilman Greenwald. I think it was around an hour or so, which has resulted in this workshop. Today, I'm respectfully requesting two things to assist with our staffing issue. As I talk about these, I'll hand out, these have 3 sheets to them. If you can, try to stick with me here and not jump ahead. I want to make sure everybody gets all the Okay, so that first page should be Iowa code. Is that what you're looking at? Okay, so the first request I have is that we do away with our residency requirement altogether. That means allowing us to cross state lines. What you have in front of you is the Iowa code that allows for cities to adopt an ordinance for police officers to live across state lines. This will broaden our applicant pool significantly with populations of the smaller communities near us in Illinois and Missouri, which typically pay their law enforcement officers less than we do. I currently have an application from an Illinois resident who stated that he is not willing to move to Iowa. He is not a certified officer, but he is interested in our department. He's not willing to move to Iowa. He's over 30 years old. He has a family and a home that he does not want to uproot. So that essentially sums up that first request. I have talked to multiple departments that have implemented similar things. Quincy Police Department down in Illinois, last I checked, they were fully staffed, and they said that that was a big reason why. They opened up Iowa and Missouri. They do have, I think it is a mile radius, but they did open up across state lines. Newton, Iowa, you can live anywhere in the state. Of course, they're up by Des Moines, so crossing state lines isn't, you'd have to travel 3 hours to do that. But they opened up the entire state. This is fairly popular in the Quad Cities area, as well as on the western side of the state around Omaha to open up that state lines to attract more people. So that's kind of where that's at. I can answer any questions on the residency portion of it, or we can move along to the second request, and I can answer all questions at the end, and we can just lump it together.
I was just gonna ask which one of those you preferred,
Of what?
because I have questions. I was
Okay.
gonna ask if you wanted them now or at the end.
Okay, let's take them all at the end.
Sounds
Let's do
good.
that. Okay. So the second request, and the next page that you should see is the wage study that was utilized for our last negotiations, our last union negotiations. Of course, I'm not in the union. And it lists us as our starting wage. So this takes into account the raise that was received in July. I want to be clear. This takes into account that raise. We are the bottom on the starting wage. We are the bottom on the top wage. I narrowed that down a little bit because as you see some of these cities on here, Pella, I don't think is a great comparable to us. Sioux Center, I don't think is a great comparable to us. So what I did is I narrowed it down to Fort Madison, Fairfield, Mount Pleasant, and I did include the Lee County Sheriff's Office. Those are all Southeast Iowa in the corner law enforcement agencies. As it stands, we are 14.8% behind Fairfield on the starting wage, 11.23% behind the sheriff's office on the starting wage. The top wage, 8.9% behind Fairfield, 14.9% behind the sheriff's office. And we're also behind on everything, Fort Madison, Mount Pleasant, on both of those accounts as well. Not as much, but we are behind any way you slice it. So my second request is a market adjustment to our police department salaries of 10%. 10% puts us just under the sheriff's office, about 1.25% starting wage, just over Mount Pleasant, and still about 5% below Fairfield. On the top wage side of things, it puts us at about 1% above Fairfield and about 5% below the sheriff's office. So there's still some comparables. We're not the highest on either account, but we're certainly not the lowest. And the previous page that has the comparables, that puts us closer to around 7-ish on that list. So more middle of the pack. So the next question is, where's that money come from, right? That's the question. So the next page you should be looking at is the entry-level police officer benefit package for 2024, 2025. Is that what you guys have there? Okay. So as you can see, the total benefit package for an entry-level police officer, which is what we're currently not paying for 7 positions that we're short, is $76,467.40. Okay, so I've done some math, and I want to make sure you know that's not just wages. That takes into account the clothing allowance, the holiday benefit, the Medicare, and the pension as well. Okay, so it's the full package. All right, our guys aren't coming in making $76,000. That's the full package, just so that the numbers are accurate. So 7 open positions, that equates to $535,000, $535,271.80 that we're not paying out for those positions that is budgeted for. The total benefit package at full staff is $2.5 million, essentially. $2,499,708. The difference between the budget and the open positions, so what we're currently spending, is 1.9 million, essentially 1.9, close to 2 million. The difference between the open positions and the market adjustment amount, if we made that 10% adjustment, would be $338,828.18. So essentially, to even get to the amount that we currently budget for with the 10% market adjustment, we would need to hire 4 additional officers before we even got to that number that we are currently budgeting for. To put that in perspective, and I don't know how closely you guys are paying attention, and I don't mean that in a slight in any way, to how many people we've been able to hire. I went back and looked, and the 4th officer down in seniority that we hired was over 3.5 years ago. So we are averaging about 1 officer a year hiring. So what I'm getting at there is if that timeline is any indicator of the future, which I hope it's not, I hope we hire 7 people this year, but history is the best indicator, right? Then we're not going to get to that amount that's budgeted for now, even if we want to be positive about it probably a couple years. And with that timeline I gave you earlier about training, you hire somebody, it's 9 months before they're considered a body. I mean, of course, we're paying for them at that point, but we're really not getting the productivity out of them that we need. So to be transparent, of course, there's additional costs associated with doing the 10% market adjustment. It would result in a slight increase in the Medicare and pension contributions as they are percentage based. These costs, we actually fall about $40,000 short of that budgeted number for. So at least for the first year, these costs, and probably the second year, these costs could be absorbed by the leftover funds from the current open positions. And, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, we have 17 officers carrying the load of 24. That load is higher than any other law enforcement agency in our area. We need to reward those that have been loyal to our city and department while attracting new officers at the same time. We have to find a way to accomplish that. We have tried some other things that have been, minimally productive, but it's not filling the positions quick enough. That's the prepared information that I have for these two requests. Again, I would like to emphasize that the council has been willing to listen to and consider solutions to my department's concerns. We appreciate that immensely. Everybody at my department has a positive outlook of our council and our mayor. You guys have been great. I know you guys are tasked with a lot of tough decisions. I understand that. I do respectfully request that the residency requirement, dissolution, and the market adjustment be placed on the agenda for the next council meeting. And of course, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Chief, going back to the staffing levels, with 17 filled positions out of 24, you noted to us the impact that's had on overtime. What about the impact that could potentially have on morale or potential burnout? Are your officers able to take vacation now? And what happens if someone gets injured and they have to be out of duty for 6 months while they recover? How do you cope with that with a skeleton crew?
That's very problematic and a severe concern, and something I think about constantly, especially the injury, given the nature of our work. We have had guys go out with a torn labrum from wrestling around with somebody or whatever the case may be, and that's a 6-month deal. What I can tell you is we recently had 3 guys on paternity leave that their spouses are forever grateful is provided by the city. And every single shift that those guys were off was covered by overtime, every single shift. When a guy wants a day off, that takes a day off away from somebody else. We have guys, and our guys and women have been great. We've had some of our younger officers that I tell them, don't sign up for the overtime if you don't want it. I will come in and work it if I have to, and I have done that. But those guys are definitely carrying the brunt right now. It's not out of the norm for somebody to work 6 or 7 12s in a row before they get a day off. That's not the way I want to operate. Of course, there's a bargaining agreement in place, so if a union guy signs up for the overtime, if they want it, they want it. As far as morale goes, our morale now, nobody has come to me with issues. That's why I'm here. I don't want it to get to that point. Low morale is like cancer. If one person gets low morale, it's going to spread, because they're constantly going to talk about the issues. If we get to that point, like I said, we lose one or 2 more officers, we're in trouble, and there's going to be a reduction in services, and our citizens are not going to be happy about it.
Chief, I've got a question here. The 10% market adjustment, will that apply to officers that are new to the job and might not already be at that salary level? I mean, does that apply to officers that are already on the job?
Yes.
Okay, so they will right off the bat get a raise if we approve that? So new guys won't be coming in making more than guys that, okay.
So the market adjustment applies to all of our officers within the department. And, you know, whatever the rate is right now, once it's approved,
The
it goes
only
up 10%.
issue that I could conceivably see with that is that if we don't have luck hiring new staff and you're still paying all that out for overtime, you know, I would like to see that 10% offset what we're paying with all the overtime. But if it's the same guys getting the overtime pay and we just gave them a pay raise, then that overtime's going to be even more, you know.
It will, and that's a consideration that we need to take into account. The hope is that a 10% raise attracts some people. I don't want to throw any other. I'm just going to use them as an example. This is not throwing anybody under the bus. If you look at our other city departments, who has staffing issues? Why aren't they coming to work for us? Let's get it to a point to where people that are interested in working with the city come to us. The fire department just had 13 applicants, I think. That's unheard of on my side of things. You know, and I told Chief Rose, hey, you're only going to hire one. Tell those guys we have positions available. Come work for us. And for whatever reason, they're choosing not to. Now, if a pay increase, you know, maybe whatever that dollar amount ends up being, if that makes it worth it for that individual to make that leap and say, okay, you know, I'll work weekends, holidays, nights. I'll put myself at risk. I'll deal with the stress, the negativity that comes with this type of job. Then great, you know, but we don't know unless we try. One thing's for sure, what we're doing now is not working. And if we let it slip too much further, I don't want to act like the sky is falling, but if we let it slip too much further, we're gonna have to make some adjustments, and they're not good ones. There's no way to get around it.
I have a kind of a unique perspective. I deal with all of the law enforcement agencies in the county, and I am biased, but the morale at Keokuk is very high. And people would consider coming to us if our pay was even similar to the others, but it is not. So we're talking about people are debating, you know, quality of life at their job, but a huge pay decrease for coming here. I think that it will help attract certified officers, and that would help us tremendously.
And I can also mention that it's anecdotal, but I did have a discussion with the Hamilton Police Chief, Mike Boley, who was here last night supporting Assistant Chief Andy Whitaker. We did coffee with a cop earlier in October, and during that event, he mentioned to me, we were talking about, you know, staffing issues, and he's doing okay over there. And he mentioned to me that I hope you don't open up state lines. And I told him, I was honest with him. I said, well, I'm going to try to. And that tells me that his concern is that he may have lose some applicants over there. Now, I don't want to see him have any problems. I hope he's fully staffed. But I have to worry about our department and our city and staffing it with quality people. That's the other thing that we haven't been willing to do, and I don't think the council wants us to do, and that's lowering our standards. We are the only department in the county right now that does truth verification during our hiring process, and we lose some people during that portion that would get hired. We've lost people during that portion who have went to other departments in our county and been hired, and they've been an issue, and later, for one reason or another, get out of law enforcement.
I have a lot of questions.
Sure.
Okay. So all of the cities on page 2, are they full-time police as well? Like
Yes.
Keokuk? Okay. So if we get rid of the state line requirement, what is your idea on how many miles or how far do you want to extend it, you know, into Illinois or Missouri?
Here's my thought process on that. Many of us, outside of Mr. Bellegarde, I imagine, from a bigger metro area, it's not unique to travel to work for an hour and a half or something similar.
Mm-mm.
Most people in this area are not willing to do that. I say we just open it up, don't put anything on it. I think people will police themselves.
Okay.
I don't think it, because any way you go, you're not going to go too far south into Missouri, or you'd be interested in working at Hannibal PD or St. Louis. Into Illinois, you'd probably be looking at Quincy, if you're close to it. You know, what we're looking for is the middle ground of those areas. And I don't think it would be necessary to put a restriction on it. I think people would police themselves. I don't think you're going to get people driving an hour and a half to work in Keokuk. And if they do, great. Show up for your shift.
And you don't have any concerns about like response time? Like if somebody had to come in really quickly, but they live an hour away, you feel confident knowing that there's other people closer that would be able to help you out?
Where I could see that being a possible issue is if somebody like that were the first person to be hired and they're the low man on, the last person, they're the low man on the totem pole, so they might get jammed with being forced for some overtime. What doesn't concern me about that is that I know I have staff that is typically available outside of our patrolmen. Should the need arise, I'll use myself as an example. This happened. We had an officer who's up at the state fair with his wife. He was the low guy. Supervisor said, "You got to come back." He called me to let me know that he had called this guy in from Des Moines. I said, "No, I'll go in and work the midnight shift. Not a big deal. It'll get covered."
Okay. Are we still going to offer the sign-on bonus as part of the package? Because are we still currently doing that?
I think the sign-on bonus is negotiable. I think it's always been negotiable.
Okay.
It says the flyers we put out anyways is up to, and to catch Mr. Bellegarde up to speed, that is for certified officers only, not for just, because we're saving on training expenses, so to incentivize a certified officer. But I think that's negotiable. I think you look at the candidate. If you're looking at a guy that just got on at Wayland, Missouri, or Canton, Missouri, doesn't have a year of experience, but he's looking to transfer over. Do we give him the sign-on bonus? Because he's not really bringing the experience. And it also depends on staffing levels. How bad do we need? Do we only need 2 guys at that point? Or do we still need 7? If we need 7, yeah, we should probably look at giving them the bonus. If we only need 1, we can be a little bit more picky in those negotiations.
Okay. With the proposed 10% salary adjustment, would that have any effect on like the union negotiations where we just had, where they get, a certain percentage this year and then a certain percentage later and a certain percentage later? How would that work?
It would change. It's a market adjustment. So the raise has already been levied this year. You raise the hourly pay scale as it sits in this contract. And then those next 2 raises have already been negotiated, and they stay in the contract and they receive those raises. What that will do will ensure that we stay competitive, and maybe even depending on what other agencies get. Like I know the sheriff's office this year, I think, got 3%. Well, we're scheduled to get 5 next year. That's going to get us pretty close to their pay on all levels. So I think we need to just maintain that. Otherwise, you're just fast forwarding the raise, if that makes sense.
Can I just add, sorry, Carissa,
No, you're fine. 'Cause
That-
I have 2 more.
that the sheriff's office receives less than half of the calls that KPD gets, and they're being paid that much more. So just an idea, when we talk about them leveling the playing field, KPD is responding to a lot more calls.
They handled about 6,600 calls in the last 365 days. We handled over 12,000. Fort Madison was between 10 and 11,000, and I didn't even look at like West Point or Donaldson because obviously their population is is so small, they're not going to have call
So
volume.
just to clarify, your goal is to get back up to exactly 24 officers,
That's my goal.
okay?
That's what let me clarify. That's what we have discovered through decades of police work that our town needs. I know that you look at the population and it seems like we have more officers than what we need based on just our living population of 10,000, right around 10,000. But I would point to the study that was done like 2018, and they've done multiple studies similar to this where we police and people use our services to the number of about 30,000 with people traveling through our town during the day.
Do you have any concerns if we get back up to 24 people and we do the salary adjustment and we keep improving the salary on being able to just afford it long term? And I'm only asking because, you know, we didn't do any capital projects the last year. We haven't talked about a plan for next year or when we're going to start doing that again. So it all comes down to like, what's our long-term projection for being able to afford everything? That would be my biggest concern.
Yep, sure. And it's my budget, so obviously it's a concern of mine, right? Because I know in the future that we are going to need squad cars at some point. We're going to need new tasers. We're going to need new firearms. You know, those things happen. What I would say is I think the time for those discussions and seeing what our fiscal health is at that point is down the road. You know, if we get to a point to where, you know, well, Mr. Bellegarde's going to do a great job. We're going to have plenty of money.
We're going to find it from somewhere.
Mr. Bellegarde's going to do a great job. But so what I will say is I think we address the needs now. And if we need to have those tough conversations down the road because we're getting thin on money and our fiscal health is declining, which I'm confident that it will not, then I think those are conversations down the road. But if we don't address our needs now, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you're going to have a reduction in services, which is going to result in possible liability issues because we know we cannot police this town with 17 people. We know that our call volume is too high and we have too many serious calls to have guys working 6-7 days in a row tired. We cannot afford to lose any more people. If we continue to lose people, we just don't have enough. We cannot work with less than 3 on a shift. We just cannot. It's a huge liability to the city if one of those guys gets hurt, and we know that our call volume is too high and we deal with too much serious stuff and we put those guys in that position. We cannot do that.
Another thing to back up Chief's point here, you said earlier that we've been averaging over the last few years about 1 hire a year. We need 7. Even if we made these changes, it's unrealistic to think that we're going to hire 7 people in a year. But hey, maybe we can get 3. Maybe we can get 4. And if we can sustain that for a few years, that's how we get to the 24. So that does give us a little bit of time to react and to see, okay, we were able to get 3 or 2. And so we can plan ahead and keep recalculating the numbers to see when we do get to that bottleneck as hopefully staff levels increase.
Yeah,
Sounds
and the great thing is this might be the perfect timing for it, being that we have a 3-year bargaining agreement in place. That might be a good time to reassess at that 3-year point. And once bargaining opens up, then we can look at the fiscal health and determine what sort of wage enhancement needs to be had or not had, I suppose. Hopefully had. Yeah, all of that will remain the same. Nothing changes there. There is a wide variety of how people tackle longevity, a wide variety. We are typically on the low end, but I can't say that we're the last, it's just handled differently at different departments.
I was going to say similar to what Councilmember Greenwald said, is that, of course, general fund is always on my mind. So initially, when we were at that meeting, I'm like, how's this going to work?
Mhm.
But I think even 3 will be a stretch. There is a good chance that we do this and no one applies. Like, we just need to be aware of that.
And
The trends are that way.
And at least at that point,
We've taken care of who's here.
at least at that point, if nobody applies, it's another gesture from the council. Hey, we tried to take care of our guys that are here, that have stayed with us through this staffing issue, that are giving up their days off to come in and work and make sure that our citizens are safe. I think it's just as important as a message to send to the guys that are here, as well as attract new recruits. One of the concerns being that the bottom of the floor drops out. The guys that are on the guys that are getting forced in because they're on the bottom, we're doing what we can to alleviate that. Everybody has bought into the teamwork aspect of it. We have guys that have been there for 20 years signing up to come in and take some of these overtime shifts to make sure these guys have a little bit of reprieve, but to ask them to do that for 3, 4, 5 years, it's not sustainable.
I'd like to make a comment about our residency. And I made this suggestion at our meeting. If we open it up nationwide, and I say that, obviously, we're not going to have somebody who lives in Florida that's going to actually be an officer in Keokuk. That's not going to happen. But when you look at all the military and all of the people that don't even know where Keokuk is, but they want to move and they know they want to do something, or they've got family in Warsaw or Carthage area, and they do a search. How many times have we seen border officer advertisements, or St. Louis officer, or Dallas officer, New York City officers? Why? Because they're trying to attract them to the town. If we open it up nationwide, we're still going to have, as he already pointed out, nobody's going to apply for a job that they don't plan on being at least in an area where they could make it to that job. But when I get out of the military, I did not know all these small towns were looking for police officers, because it wasn't an option back then. When most of the towns, especially back then, you had to live within city limits or within like 10 minutes of town. We opened it up last year to expand that, but if we open it up nationwide, they're still going to have to go through a hiring process. They're still going to have to go through an interview. We trust our hiring people, and we trust our police department to make the right decision. If some guy from California decides he wants to come here and they ask him, well, are you willing to move? No, but I'm pretty sure I can make it. Well, then he's not going to get hired. Well, thanks for applying, but no, we're not going to hire you. But it does allow those in that area that are looking. Like I said, I came from this area. I was in North Carolina in the Army. I'm not getting a paper from Keokuk or Carthage. I'm getting a North Carolina paper. I'm doing a search, and it's doing a search there. But if you open it up nationwide, and they just police officer nationwide, and they want to come move to Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, then it'll say, just like looking for a vehicle, well, we didn't find any in this 50-mile radius, but here's the listings in the 100-mile radius. We have an opportunity of potentially attracting a lot more people that way. Ideally, I'm a little more optimistic. I think if we open it up and we do this 10% wage adjustment, I'm confident we'll see a lot more applicants. And on the positive end, I would like to think we would have 3 of them, minimum 3 of them hired before the end of next year.
And let me explain some of the things that we have done in an attempt to attract more officers. We do all the job posting stuff, Indeed, Police One, the Academy website. We did stop doing the Daily Gate because we weren't getting much productivity out of that. Facebook had a bigger reach. We've used Radio Keokuk. We suspended the civil service recently, and I'm doing everything I can to utilize that tool. Since we have done that, I have conducted 2 tests, one on a Saturday, one on a Monday evening, and then I have another scheduled for this Saturday. Making the process more individualized and at the applicant's leisure to make sure that they can make it, doing everything we can. I have developed in-house a practice exam to assist with the post-exam process, offering for these applicants to come in free of charge. I will proctor the exam just like a post-exam. Obviously, the questions are different, but to give them an opportunity to feel what it's like to take that test and get an idea of what kinds of questions and knowledge they should be brushing up on prior to taking the exams. I've went and got a grant for a CVSA, which is a different kind of truth verification process other than the polygraph. Similar but different. It works on voice. We have 3 certified examiners. The purpose for that was to enhance our timeline. Before, we would have to get with a polygrapher in Des Moines. We were on their schedule. Maybe they can't get somebody in for 3 weeks or whatever the case is. Well, now, if we have a good applicant, I can have you on the machine the next day and we can knock it out and be done with it. I've done everything I can to enhance this process that I can think of. That's why I'm here tonight. That's why I asked for the meeting. And, you know, I'm open to other ideas as well, if anybody has any, but I think this is the route to go right now.
Chief, can you refresh our memory? When we lowered the age requirement, what did we change that to?
We changed it to mirror state law, which is 18.
Okay.
And we do currently have an 18-year-old applicant.
And we will not go lower than that, no.
What's that?
We will not go lower than 18, no.
What's our relationship like with the high school?
We have a great relationship with the high school through our SRO, Officer Date out there. She's doing a great job out there, interacts with the kids. We attend their career fair that they have every year. And I'll tell you how that went a little bit. This last year, we went out there. The sheriff, the current sheriff, Stacy Weber, they put all law enforcement in the same room. And the sheriff, doing what he needs to do, talks about how they were the highest paid and they have this and that. And he actually talked about how he had gotten officers from our department to go to his department. And he's doing that in front of people that we are trying to attract, right? And it makes it tough because he is able to say, well, we pay whatever amount more a year, or whatever the case may be. We have a good relationship with the high school. We are out in the public, not only with the high school, but we do a lot of stuff with young kids as well, trying to foster that relationship in hopes that it pays off in multiple ways. 1, get people interested in our department. 2, make them more comfortable with our police officers so they feel like it's not an adversarial relationship. We want these kids to talk to us when they see us at the store, whatever the case may be.
Can you call on the resources of the county if you were ever in a position where you needed people like ASAP? Are you able to do that? Are you able to call up the sheriff and say, hey, we need some help down here?
Sure. And through my work in the task force, I work closely with a few of those guys, and I have strong relationships with them. That's never an issue. The boots on the ground. We're all law enforcement. We look out for each other. There's times where the county may not have a deputy on the south end of the county, but a call might be outside of city limits. They're en route. They say, hey, we have a shots fired call or whatever. Can you meet the deputy at this residence? Sure thing. You know, let's get it taken care of. There's no issues there, but I don't think that that's something that we want to do on a routine basis.
Yeah.
Miss Cackley, sorry.
That's all right. What is the current wage of an entry-level fire department personnel?
I don't know. Over 50,000, and our entry level is 53. And there's no knock against those guys. Those guys are great. They help us on all kinds of scenes, car wrecks, everything. They clean stuff up. Those guys do a good job, but the job is different. The stress level, the baseline stress level is different. If you ever look up the hypervigilance of a police officer, typically your stress level when you come to work, instead of it being a baseline, because you're such a reactive force on a regular basis, your stress level is a little bit higher, your heart rate runs a little bit higher throughout the entire shift because you're kind of always in preparation mode. And I'm not just making things, there's studies been done on it. A good book to read would be, I think it's called Emotional Health of Law Enforcement or something like that, but it talks about the hypervigilant roller coaster and the effects of it. Couple that with we're required to go to the academy for 3 months. We're required to do, or we implemented an FTO process. It's an additional 12 weeks. We have to pass the polygraph. We have to have all these certifications. We have to, our job requires a lot. It requires a lot. We ask our people to do a lot. The sleep schedule is crazy. I don't know how many of you have ever worked midnights with kids at home where they have a soccer game at 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning. You got off at 7 and you got to be back in at work that night at 7. It can be tough, or they have to get up and go to court in the middle of their, imagine getting up at 2 a.m. to go to court. That's what it's like for our officers.
Chief Rose said that it's mid-50s, and by 2 years, they're at 68,000 at the fire department.
For entry level?
That's what he said.
Oh, okay. So what he's doing is the first to the third year. So our third year right now is 70,890. So it sounds like we're about 1,500 or more, a little 1,500 or more higher than they are at the top end, and roughly the same at the starting wage.
High school. Have we had anyone apply directly from the high school in the past few years?
The 18-year-old that applied now actually he applied earlier in the spring. He didn't get through the physical process, but he actually applied the day before he graduated, I think, because he had already turned 18. He has reapplied. So yes, the answer is yes, we have had that individual recently. And we have several officers within our department that did go to our high school, but they weren't, Philip Dunlap was a recent hire that went to our high school. He's 22 or 23 now.
So what's everybody thinking? Because Chief requested it to be on the agenda for next meeting.
I like that we're getting ahead of what could come, and definitely, I think that you brought the numbers, presented it very well.
Any more questions, guys? Anything else you need to let us know?
No, I think that's it. I'm always open to conversation if anybody ever wants to reach out for anything, not just this. I like talking to you guys.
I think you have a good plan, and it seems like you've thought about it from every angle. What ifs, the long-term goals.
I'm an overthinker.
I like it. You gotta dot all your I's and cross all your T's.
Try to.
So I appreciate it.
Anybody?
Oh, yeah, sure. The assistant chief just wants me to mention that we have a recruitment team that goes to career fairs and at colleges and Iowa Works. I've had them post our job postings before. And I'm in talks with them to set up they wanted to set up a time for me to come to one of their fairs where Burlington PD goes. And I didn't think that was a great idea because Burlington obviously is able to offer much more than we are. So I asked if they could set up a separate room and a separate day so we're alone. And they said they will do that. So we're in talks to do that. But we do also travel to college career fairs.
If we open it across state lines, maybe you could go over to like Western
We do.
And, okay, you could do
We
that.
go to Western and we go down to Culver Stockton as well.
Awesome.
And we've had success in getting some internships from those colleges, but they just haven't panned out as far as employment goes. We have also joined the Skill Bridge program. Skill Bridge is something where a military member is getting towards the end of their contract, and it's a way to re-implement the service member into civilian life through job training. And what is scaring those guys away? I've had several inquiries. What's scaring those guys away is they're getting out of the military. They don't want to sign another contract. Most of these guys are from East Coast, West Coast, and they're looking to receive some training to assist in getting a job near their hometown. So, but the point being, we're trying. You know, we have our fingers in a lot of pies.
So are those people military policemen?
No, it's not a requirement that they be a military policeman. The way that would work is we put them through the interview process just like we would anybody else, without the truth verification portion. Most of that is done through Zoom because they are stationed typically far away. The person is accepted into the program. They come, they work shifts with our department. The way we have it laid out is they would complete the portions of the field training that you can complete without being a certified officer. And the goal being, and I tell the applicants this, our goal is to prepare you for employment with our department. So at the end of this program, we expect that your goal aligns with ours, and that's to work at our department. And that's where we're losing people because they're for whatever reason, they choose not to relocate to Keokuk.
So they don't have to go to the academy then?
They would. Once their contract ends, they can't go until their contract ends. They can't receive any wages or benefits from the city until their contract with the military ends. Essentially, the military is allowing them to live out the rest of their contract, receiving real world, real job training to prepare them to enter civilian life again. They don't receive any compensation until that ends. At the end of that contract, they would have to go to the academy. And that's why the training portion is the field training officer part that we do with our officers that graduate the academy. That way, in hopes, we hire them, they go to the academy, they get out of the academy, and they've already knocked out a bunch of that training.
Is there any benefit for a military policeman attending the academy, that it's a shortened program since they're already law enforcement oriented?
There are some shorter academies across the state that we haven't been in the position to take advantage of. I don't know if they accept the military police training as, I don't know if they credit that the same way that they would if you were a certified officer in another state that had already attended an academy. That's something I would have to look into.
I would suggest that.
I have I have reached out to the National Guard directly multiple times in our area, letting them know, hey, we have positions available. Military and law enforcement kind of go hand in hand. If you have guys available, you know, send them my way. And it hasn't been successful, but that is a good idea to check that out. That way, if that question comes up, or at least I have the answer, and maybe I can do some targeted recruiting.
Well, our local guard is an engineers battalion, which is not military police oriented. And am I understanding, I want a clarification on the monies that are going to be used for this 10%. Is that from what you have budgeted for the 24 officers, or is this going to have to come out of the general budget?
Yeah, so my understanding of the way that works, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. So what you would see with the 10% increase budgeted for 24 is you would see the end number budget be higher because we're budgeting for 24 positions at a higher rate. However, you're still not paying out those 7, so you're still going to have a big chunk of that not expended, right? With that not being expended, those are the numbers I was talking about. To actually realize getting to the number that we're currently budgeted for, we would have to hire 4 more officers. If that's making sense at all. But at the end of the day, when you budget for it, yeah, your number at the end is going to be bigger, but your expenditure is going to be what I talked about.
He shouldn't need a budget amendment. Even if this went through today, he's budgeted for more than what the raises would be.
Right.
He shouldn't need more than what's budgeted for.
So
Nothing
we
would come out
won't
of
be drawing from the general fund.
It should not be, as long as all of the other line items, I know that overtime is different, but unless he had some crazy expense, it should be covered in his budget.
Well, he said he's used up 95% of his overtime budget.
But he hasn't
in 4
used,
months.
he hasn't used probably even 75% of his wages, of the actual salary for the
Right.
24 he budgeted.
And that's what I just asked, if it's going to come out of what is budgeted. For
It
this
will.
year.
It fits
It will.
within that
But then he
budget.
said he was going to have to amend.
No, so the end number, when you could leave the budget the same for this year. You don't have to do a budget amendment, but you're applying a budget for 24 salaries to 17 at a higher rate.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That's
So,
better.
okay, so when we do the budget next year, when you build in that 10% raise for 24 positions, your end number is going to be higher. Because now you're budgeting for 24 positions at the higher rate. The only, what's that? Huh? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's for next fiscal year. Yeah.
Okay.
Slightly. It would fit in, yes. Yeah. Yeah, the fringe benefits are budgeted for 24 positions right now, yeah. Yeah, the calls for service.
When are your next retirements?
We have a little bit before our next retirement.
None next year.
No. No, it's longer than that. What's Greg, 6 years? 4 years? Greg Himes is 4 years. He's our next one. So we have a little bit of breathing room to get our numbers up. But of course, we got hit with 3 retirements this year, and then the assistant chief took a different position as a chief on the other side of the state. And then last year, we had a couple retirements as well. So in 2 years, we've had, six retirements, and we thought we were making a little bit of leeway last year, but then we got hit with the 4 people leaving this year and just couldn't keep up. We have, I put a few parameters in effect for taking time off. One of them being you now have to request time off 30 days in advance. That allows me to schedule, hopefully, if it's Monday through Friday, during a day shift, one of our flexible schedules, myself, the SRO, the assistant chief, and the detective will, if we can at all, cover that shift to avoid overtime for that shift. That's going forward. The other thing I put into effect is, so we have an AB, we work 12-hour shifts. So we have AB and CD. So I'll refer to them as sides. You're only allowed to have one person off on a side at a time. That means only one person is working overtime in a day unless somebody calls in sick or something, something else happens. Or we have a death scene or something where we have to call people in to secure the scene. So one overtime shift a day, typically, right now. They come in and work a 12-hour shift. They do have the ability to find somebody to split the shift with them if they choose to. No, absolutely not.
Don't think so.
Yes, sir. Yes. We do not have people stay over. 12 hours in law enforcement is enough for the day. Granted, there are emergencies that happen at the end of the shift. You may end up staying over a couple of hours, but yeah. No. Nope, we haven't been up that far. I don't want to say, I don't know. I mean, I would assume that they have some sort of job fair. Most places do, but I don't know. Yeah, you're talking about Captain Moore, and he was a spectacular hire. He has been absolutely great for our department for about a decade now. Well, and that's the other thing we're doing. We have a couple young guys that are under 23 years old, and we tell them, hey, you have to have some friends, and they try. They talk to their friends, but not everybody's cut out for this job or wants to work in law enforcement. I mean, it's kind of more of a lifestyle that you're committing to.
So if we don't have any new questions, and if everybody is happy with what they've heard, I am definitely happy with what I heard. And I thank you very much for working so hard at it, and trying to come up with everything you can to protect our city. So if nobody else has any questions that we haven't gone over, do you guys want to call it a night, or do you have some more you want to talk to us about, or?
What would be the process from here? We talk about it at the next meeting, and then what happens? Like, okay.
Ideally, it'd be a motion on the thing.
Yeah, I would.
Yes.
I would like to see the vote next meeting, and I can have language prepared for the residency ordinance. And I think we have time on that if you wanted to do the 3 readings on it, or if you wanted to just waive the second and third and go ahead and pass, or go ahead and vote on it. I don't want to assume it's going to pass. Either way, I think we're fine on the ordinance. I would like to see the 10% voted on immediately.
Will that be a separate
Okay.
vote? One vote for each thing?
Yeah.
what would your ideal timeline be to start this new approach? Like the beginning of the year, or by the end of this year, or
Both of them, or which half are you talking about?
both?
Both. I would like to see the pay increase immediately. I would like to see the residency as soon as possible. I don't think it hurts us. However, what I will say on the residency side of things, the next academy is in January. So that means if it's the first of the year, it's not going to make a difference.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I don't think there's any more questions. I think it's gone great, and we got a lot to think about.
Sure.
And again, I thank you very much for all that, and I think we can all go home.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Oh, you need me to sign that?